before we begin this video, spoiler warning friends, this list contains a ton of spoilers for Avengers Endgame, so if you haven't seen it yet, turn away. Unless you want to be spoiled, in which case, continue watching. With the confirmation that the multiverse now exists in the MCU thanks to one of the many snaps that occurred in Phase 3, there's now a whole lot to consider about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and where everything might be headed. So today we are counting down some of the popular theories pertaining to that future, with our list of the top 10 scary MCU multiverse fan theories. And to be fair, not all of them are scary. Some are just loaded up with existential dread, really. So with that in mind, let's get to it. In at number 10, What If? Now we know we'll be getting an animated What If series on the Disney Plus streaming service that will follow suit to its namesake comic. It will explore different divergent realities where various MCU events play out differently. While making the What If comics into a television series based off of the MCU is a pretty darn brilliant idea, some people think that the concept behind the show won't only appear in animated form. There's a theory that suggests Marvel will begin producing standalone films that exist outside of the Prime Marvel universe. This is something that's actually been hinted to by Marvel Studios too. Or at least in terms of the time in which films occur, since we've already seen a film take place in the past, Captain Marvel. So the possibilities are endless. Who knows, maybe Black Widow's solo feature won't be an origin story prequel, but instead a story of hers that takes place in an alternate timeline. In at number 9, Quentin Beck is a liar. This theory is one of the more popular ones pertaining to the small tidbit of information we got from the Far From Home trailer. In the trailer, we learn that Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, is from another alternate Earth, and has come here to work with Nick Fury, seemingly as a good guy. But here's the problem with that. In the comics, Quentin Beck is a notorious liar. His very first appearance in the comics has him framing Spider-Man for a crime that he committed. Beck has no actual powers. He's a master illusionist and special effects guru who used to work in Hollywood until his dream of being an actor was crushed. But he emits special gases that can cause hallucinations, and even a gas that nullifies superpowered individuals' abilities. So this theory suggests that he's been lying to Fury, took advantage of the original snap and pretended to be dead rather than dusted, saying he came from an alternate Earth, and is living behind this facade. Now, in order for this to work, Beck would have needed some sort of intel concerning the existence of the multiverse, but that doesn't seem like a difficult plot point to pull off. And at number 8, Stealth Suit Spider-Man. If Quentin Beck is in fact not a liar and is from an alternate universe, this is potentially one fan theory that could pan out. This theory suggests that the Spider-Man we see in the black stealth suit in the Far From Home trailer isn't actually the Prime MCU timeline Peter Parker. Instead, it's the Peter Parker from Mysterio's Earth. And he's attempting to hunt down the villain, who has been making the rounds causing trouble since he discovered the hole in the multiverses caused by the snap. Perhaps Quentin Beck of that timeline got his powers from the snap, and that Earth's Spider-Man has been trying to track him down. In at 7, Secret Wars. One of the biggest debated theories right now is what the next saga of the MCU will be that we're entering into. Marvel Studios' key creatives have been calling the past 3 phases of the MCU the Infinity Saga, leading fans to believe another major story event from the comics will be the next saga that the future phases explore. Now, thanks to the confirmation that the multiverse exists, one of the most popular theories is that the next saga will be based on Secret Wars. There's been 2 Secret Wars events in the comics, with the second 2015 one involving 2 combined Marvel universes. The theory is that the Beyonder, an omnipotent cosmic entity who first appeared in Secret Wars issue 1 back in 1984, will kidnap heroes and villains from multiple different timelines and plop them into Battleworld, a planet in which they are forced to duke it out with one another. In Secret Wars 2, Beyonder threatened to destroy the multiverse if the heroes and the villains did not comply with his demands. That storyline ended with the character being killed by Molecule Man, a character who has yet to be introduced into the MCU. Now this theory, if it pans out, could also serve as an introduction to some of the highly anticipated recently acquired X-Men and Fantastic Four characters. Doctor Doom did play a big role in the original Secret Wars after all, having stolen the Beyonder's powers. And at number 6, Fantastic Four and the X-Men's introduction. Speaking of recently acquired characters, our next theory from a redditor named Scissorlift pertains to the introduction of the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. It suggests that these characters all exist in another alternate Earth, and that when the snap occurred, the bridge between Earths in the multiverse opened up. These characters now have a way to enter the Prime MCU timeline. It also suggests something really neat, that on the Fox alternate Earth, these characters also dealt with a tremendous threat the likes of Thanos, in which something occurred to rip the fabric of their reality open. Those 2 rips occurred simultaneously, and the films that introduce these characters won't involve any MCU characters that we've previously seen. It's a way to establish their world separately and then eventually introduce them all in the next big crossover movie. And at number 5, the Time Loop. This theory from redditor Darth Coco Coco suggests that when Cap went back in time to return all of the stones at the end of Avengers Endgame, he unintentionally created a time loop. While it's been confirmed by the Russo brothers that when Cap stayed behind to live out his life with Peggy, it wasn't an alternate timeline, that still doesn't answer how he returned to the Prime timeline. Logically, he would just use the Pym particles, jump back when he's super old, presumably after Peggy's death, and then he goes on to give his shield to Sam. Something that he would have to do since, unless someone in Wakanda made a new one, that would be the only existing shield of Cap's in that Prime timeline. Anywho, the theory goes on to discuss how Cap doing this essentially creates a time loop, with the Infinity Saga repeating over and over and over again. Hence why it's called the Infinity Saga. And at number 4, Worlds Collide. There have been multiple stories throughout the history of the Marvel Comics in which the conversions of alternate Earths have become an issue. Back in New Avengers issue 21, volume 3 from 2014, the Illuminati faced this problem. They're the collection of the Earth's biggest minds, each representing a portion of the Earth's superhuman community, each with great influence or power. Namor, one of the members, did what he claimed the others could not. When Earth 4290001 was on a collision course with Earth 616, he activated the detonator to blow up that Earth. Then there's the 2017 to 2018 story arc Worlds Collide, in which the High Evolutionary sets Earth 616 on a collision course with Counter-Earth, leaving the Avengers and the Champions desperate to find a way to stop all of this impending doom. So with all of that in mind, this theory suggests that the next saga of the MCU, which will play out over the course of Phase 4 and 5, will all be leading up to a cataclysmic event like the two alternate Earths colliding into one another. And at number 3, Armor and Sword. In the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer, we see that Nick Fury and Maria Hill are very much present and busy at work trying to keep the world safe. Since we know that Phil Coulson is the current director of S.H.I.E.L.D. as per the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television series, this has led to speculation that Fury and Hill have moved on to newer, more dangerous territory. Armor, one of the sister agencies to S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comics. Armor stands for Altered Reality Monitoring and Operational Response. There's also another agency in the comics called SWORD, which stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. The introduction of Armor could be the answer to the future of the Avengers Initiative, and the future of how Nick Fury continues his work. And at number 2, Galactus' origin. Personally, this is my favorite theory on their list. This one speculates that one of the snaps that occurred in the Avengers Endgame film, which opened up the door to other parts of the multiverse, could have potentially created a new alternate timeline altogether as a side effect, and that timeline created Galactus. So, consider this. When Galactus was first introduced to us in the comics in 1966 Fantastic Four issue 48, he appeared as a godlike figure, one who operated not as a good or evil entity, but as an entity of balance, who consumed planets for energy. Later on, his origin was revealed. He was a mortal man who lived prior to the Big Bang. When an unknown cosmic cataclysm gradually begins to kill off all of the life in his universe, he and some other survivors leave their planet of Ta on a spacecraft, only to be engulfed in the Big Crunch. But Galactus, known back then as Galen, does not die. Instead, he's bonded with the sentience of the universe, where he gestates for billions of years in an egg made of the debris from his ship, only to emerge as Galactus. Now this theory suggests that the snap caused that unknown cosmic cataclysm, and because time is relative, by the time Galactus enters into the 616 universe, those billions of years have already passed. His universe has been established, and he's looking for more planets to consume. Now it's worth noting that Galactus is technically a being of balance, doing what Thanos attempted to do, except is way more of a force of natural order. He's not doing it to be the righteous sacrificial hero. He's doing it because he's hungry, and he's essentially one giant predator in the ocean of the universe, constantly looking for prey to feed on. He's not guided by any sort of morality, only function. This theory actually spins off of another one that's equally as fascinating, that the overarching narrative threading all of the sagas in the MCU together will all be about balance, and how the universe is constantly growing and unable to support all of the life that flourishes in it. So creating balance, whether that's through twisted means as Thanos is, or through natural order like Galactus, is necessary, and of course, inevitable. And finally, in at number 1, too many Hawkeyes. There's been a lot of debate online concerning the physics and mechanics of time travel in Avengers Endgame. Long story short, when you travel back in time, you cannot affect the future. Instead, you create a divergent timeline if that timeline is altered enough. For example, Loki taking the Tesseract and disappearing in 2012, divergent timeline. Captain America going to a new timeline and being with Peggy instead of her marrying another dude and having kids with said dude, divergent timeline. Hawkeye grabbing his kid's baseball glove, no divergent timeline. But that last bit is what's being speculated over in this theory. A redditor by the name of SpideyFan914 suggests that despite the online consensus being that Hawkeye did not change anything when he went back in time to his farm, according to the laws of physics, even that slight change of Clint calling out his daughter's name and taking the baseball glove would still have created a new divergent timeline. It seems absurd that the timeline would remain the prime timeline, no matter how small the change, since time is just another dimension of space. The idea is that in the new timeline where Clint goes back and took the glove glove, let's call it timeline B for the purpose of this number. Let's say in timeline B that things went the way they do in the prime timeline. His family is snapped, he becomes Ronin. 5 years later, Natasha finds him and he agrees to work with the Avengers and test out the time machine. When he tests out the time machine, the timeline would be different, because if it was all the same, there would already be a Clint in that exact same moment in that position in space-time. Now consider this, his daughter, after hearing her dad call her name, goes and finds her father and is like, "Were you calling me?" And he's like, "Nope," this one being the timeline B Hawkeye. And then she says, "I swear I heard you calling me." Perhaps that slight strange occurrence would be on the back burner for Clint in his mind, considering all of the strange shit that he's seen while working with the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. and, you know, he's got those spy instincts. When Endgame comes around in timeline B, Clint's gonna remember that. He's gonna connect the dots, and that's going to mean there will be changes. And perhaps in order to avoid seeing himself and creating another timeline, Clint and Tony and Bruce decide to alter the exact time that he goes back to in order to avoid himself. But then that begins a cycle, and that means we keep getting splitting timelines. So in theory, the Avengers could have started this unstable constant divergence of timelines. But as they suggest, whether a single use of time travel adds one new timeline or 300, it's nothing compared to the still infinite number of total real timelines. And here's where it gets wild. Doctor Strange, out of all the possible futures, only saw one timeline that won. Meaning, the cost of the Avengers time traveling and returning all of the stones was creating a bunch of divergent realities whose purpose is to die, since the events of Infinity War likely will occur on those timelines as well. And since there aren't any other successful futures, only just this prime MCU one, that's a whole lot of dead people. Yeah, yikes. Which of these theories do you think holds up? And which ones are just too darn crazy to actually pan out? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know all of the thoughts and feels. And hey, while you're at it, why not share your own fan theories about the multiverse with us? We'd love to hear them. In the meantime though, before you go, please spread that love and hit that like button and subscribe to join the Nerd Squad for more videos just like this one. Thanks for watching, friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.